Pro Audio Secrets, a show that helps you to find your own voice in sound.
It's awesome because it starts to be more than just a course, you know? It starts to be where you belong, really. It's a community where you belong, you know?
Even when you're doing the university and finish that, you may not be ready for the industry.
And you have to do some things that maybe you disagree. You don't think that the sound should sound like that. Other person is telling you how they want to hear it. You are not allowed to improvise. You have to be assertive.
You have to be here more than 8 hours per day in order to know enough after that you're ready for the industry. So do you think you can manage that? Because if you're not, there is no point for you being here. I said, yeah, I can manage. And I actually did, you know? If you want to know what it actually takes to work in the audio industry as a professional in movies or series or games, this episode is for you because I'm talking with seasoned professional and mentor Pedro Coelho, and he's running a course in Brazil in Portuguese, teaching people for a couple of years now everything about audio post-production, and he's running a business as a sound supervisor. He's a seasoned Foley artist with 14 years of experience and one of the leading people in sound in Brazil. He has a huge Instagram and also a YouTube channel and a community of students. And I'm so passionate about all these topics because I'm building something like that myself. And we're having this conversation about his path, how he got into sound and how he's actually teaching people the way to be ready for the job. And this episode is about that. If you want to know what it takes to be ready for the job, then watch this episode. Pedro, if you can tell me a little bit about your upbringing as a sound designer and how you got into mentoring, I would be really interested in that.
All right. So I have some things that are really common ground between people that work in sound, and some things that are quite unique. So my dad, he is an animator. He works making animated films here in Brazil, which is very rare, and it was even more rare. I didn't know anyone who had a relative or knew anyone else that worked making animation films. So that I grew up with my dad making animation films. So he was always working in this industry that is crazy. You have to work a lot and you have shifts, have to work in weekends sometimes. And, you know, it's not very family friendly. So I grew up in this environment with my dad working a lot and being absent sometimes because of work, you know, because of this industry and the craziness that goes around with it. And I had the opportunity that actually was kind of my brother made something bad. And when the internet started and you had to connect the internet, you had to do it by phone, and it was very expensive. In every minute you spent online, and my brother started using internet during the late hours of the day when everybody was sleeping. So the phone bill came like very high, and my father put me and my brother to work as assistants for him in his company where he made animation commercials, you know, different pieces, publicity, and also series and other things. So I started with 12 years old to live in this environment, in this audiovisual environment, and this very creative environment that is animation. You know, it's almost almost has no limits and no rules. Animation almost, you know, it has rules, but it's very free to create. And that for me was, it started, I was always very creative, but it started something in me that wanted to work creatively, you know, and that started considering and learning, even without knowing about narrative, the dramatic, dramatic arts, and how to convey and express things emotionally through art, because of the animation and all the talks about everybody was having in the company, so I started learning a lot uh, in this other area, animation.
Yeah.
And
And your father, did he bring you on to the company as a punishment that you can refund the high bill for
yes,
the internet?
exactly.
So
Me and my
you were
brother.
punished alongside your brother, although you didn't
Yes,
do it.
yes, yeah. I didn't do it. Yes, but I got the blame too. But it was good, actually. It wasn't bad. We went to school, and then later we went to to work. And it was okay. Especially because obviously my father didn't put us to work long hours and do very hard things. Of course, we were teenagers, right?
Mm.
I was 12, my brother was 14. So, but we were in that environment, and we heard people talking, and we could see how people were passionate about their works, creating, and doing things. And that started like a spark, and I was always very passionate about music, very,
Mm.
very, since I can remember. I always loved music with all my heart and soul, and when I but my family didn't have money for me to have an instrument or to start learning, so I always wanted, but I could never start. But when I was like 14, something like that, after this experience, I went to an aunt's house, and she had this piano. And while I was there doing nothing, I just started playing the piano, and I never had played the piano, but I just from my memory, I learned and started playing three songs that I have never tried to play, and my aunt was very impressed. She was, "Wow, Pedro has some talent here. You should make him, you should put him to learn music and all that." And so my parents, they really, they really, they believed. They said, "Okay, let's
Hmm.
make an effort." And things were changing in my parents' um, how can I say, and in the financial part of our family. My father was started to get some more money, and our quality of life and everything started improving. So my father said, "Okay, let's," and then I started playing guitar, acoustic guitar. I started learning some instruments and something like that. And then I really discovered that really music is my passion.
Mm.
And but when I went to college to learn music here in Brazil, things are very difficult, right? We have some very big problems, social problems, because of the inequality, social inequality. So if you work with music, you won't be able to pay for a living. Simple as that, And when I
Hmm.
was in college, I met a lot of great musicians. I have some friends that, I looked at them and I thought, I will never be able to play to be as good as these people, and they were very bad. They not bad and technically in music, of course. They were bad financially. Some
Mm.
some of them played in orchestras and things like that. What if people in every other country, if people play in orchestras, they have their life guaranteed. Here in Brazil, it's not like that. They played in orchestras and all that, and still didn't have money. They
Mm.
still had to work a lot. They still were not very comfortable in life. So when I saw that, it really, it was like a cold water bucket, in your head, like a cold shower. You kind of wake up and you say, okay, maybe this isn't really for me. Maybe this I won't be able to live the life I want like this. So, but when I was studying music, I started studying musical production.
Hmm.
Like I believed I would be a very big rock star. Why not, right? Famous and play all around the world. So I thought maybe if I learn how to produce my own music, I can make it. Can make it. And even while I'm not big and famous, I can produce other bands and start a studio and all that. And then I went to this kind of more technical aspect of music, right? And when I was there, I in my first internship in a studio, I heard the owner kind of complaining, and say, when I started, only good people worked in the business, but now everybody can produce. Everyone can produce music in their own bedroom, so people don't want to pay the studios. This will be a big problem in 10 years, and this industry will collapse and all that. Like it was very dramatic, and then I thought, well, maybe this industry is not that good too. What can I do to work? To make a living with sound, with something I love. But and then I stopped, but I didn't stop learning, and I didn't stop working. I That's a value, a very big value and principle in my family. Work. You have to work, work, work. Everybody works too much, and I didn't stop. And when I was trying to figure out what to do, someone that I knew in this internship in animation said to me, "Oh, you know how to edit sound?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And they said, "Oh, I have an animatic for a short animation film here. Can you maybe edit some music? You don't have to make the music, but you can edit some music for this animatic, so we can sell the projects and have more money to make it." And I said, "Okay, I can do it." And I did it, and I but when I did it, still the animatic had some need for sound effects. And I, of my own accord, of my own head, I started trying to create things. And I didn't have a computer of my own back then. I had my mother. She was a social worker, and she worked for the government, right? And she had a computer for her work, which was a very bad computer, but
Hmm.
it had a microphone in the web camera, in the camera there was, in the laptop, in the notebook. So I could record things in that microphone that was part of the camera. And I started creating sound effects, recording the video, deleting the video, getting only the audio, and editing. Like very, very improvised setup, and obviously horrible. But there was a great school for me for my creativity, to experiment things and to learn more, and to try to achieve more with my very limited setup, very limited conditions.
And
And then I started.
that was for your internship that you did, just as a project. And what
Actually,
year was that?
that was actually after I left my internship in in music, in the music studio, right? I did the internship in animation only for 1 year, for actually a couple months, like I think where it was 6 months or something like that. It was very short. But this was, I had already 16 years old. I was already 16 years old, something like that. And then I did my first jobs, just editing some music and putting some sound effects that I was creating, or that I was finding, I bought some CDs, those very old CDs that had like every CD had like 100 sound effects and something like that. I had three of those, and I started using, and then I started getting very passionate about that too. I started liking that too. So that's when I really discovered this new niche, this new area that I could work, and and I started researching, and I saw that it was very much, it was a lot more, how can I say, stable, and you could earn more and have more predictability, have more certainty of how of your ear. In music, you don't have that. You work, and then you spend a lot of time without work, without a job, without anything. And in this other niche, audio post production, I saw that you had more time in during the work you were doing, so it was somewhat more stable, and it used to pay more, a lot more, and you could have a career,
Mm.
a career, a more stable and more secure career path. So I kind of chose this, chose to start this new area, uh, because I was uniting here in Portuguese we have a saying that is, you unite the good and the pleasant. So, and but it's more like the pleasant and the convenient.
Mm.
And I united something that I was already liking a lot. I was having fun doing, and it was convenient. It was very convenient.
But wait a minute. You did all that and you were only 16 years old. So from the age of 12, starting in the company of your father, learning a bit of about animation, and then age 14, getting into piano and starting to practice in music, you figured
Yeah.
out that the music industry will not give you a living, that you being an engineer within the music industry will not cover it for you. And then you
I,
already found out to go into post production for movies when you were just 16 years old. Is that correct?
No, I did. I jumped a little bit around. Sorry about that. Let's straight the timeline. When I was 12, I went to this internship in animation, and then time passed. And when I was 14, I started learning music, learning to play music. When I was 16, I went to this studio to learn to be an intern there, and I heard the owner complaining a lot. And then afterwards, I went to college to music. So
Mm.
when I was in college, I had already had the experience in the studio, working in the studio, and hearing the guy complain a lot. But then in music, when I was studying music, I had this thought of let's work in the studio more and all that. And then I started thinking about the complaints of the owner, which that said that music is a dying business and all that.
Mm.
Then I started. I actually didn't do a lot different. I just remember, but I didn't know what to do. I was still trying, going my own path. That's what happened. That it was different was that someone asked me to edit the music, and that opened my eyes,
Yeah, I
and
get that.
so it was more like this. Was had some years between all of those checkpoints, and
And
when I
then,
was 18 was when I went to college, and I didn't finish college. I only did one semester and quit to do something else, to actually, I quit music to go to another college, which was about music production, audio production. And in this other college, when I started there, I was already migrating to post production, to audio post production. And but in this college, they didn't teach anything about audio post production, because here in Brazil we have a very we we don't have a culture that understands audio and audio post production. Even in colleges, in cinema colleges and films and film schools and all that, they don't teach audio post production. They don't
Mm.
teach. In some schools, they don't even mention it. You know, so this area, the audio post production, yeah, this niche is very, like I said earlier, very underappreciated. People are very ignorant about it. They don't really know what it is. They think maybe it's the composer's job to do, or maybe that it only a mixing exists. A lot of people, they approach you saying that the film needs mixing, but
Mm.
actually it needs the whole post production, and people just don't know. So when
And
I
how
went to
did you
college,
then
I went to
learn?
study that.
How did you then learn the ropes about audio post production, dialogue editing, sound effects, ADR, Foley?
My this story, this part of my story, is actually the exactly why I started teaching. I didn't. Nobody taught me. I was alone. I did. Some jobs started coming up because I knew people from animation, and people would hire me, but I didn't know how to charge, how to plan, and to do all the work, all the post production. I didn't know about Foley, or what was the difference between Foley and sound effects editing and everything else. I didn't know. I was improvising, and I
Hmm.
improvised for a lot of years, a lot of years. I started working and experimenting in 2006, and I improvised uh, until 2011. But I, because I knew people that, because I started to know people that know how to produce music and how to, use the DAW and all the processes of musical production. I wasn't 100% lost. I knew some things, but I didn't know actually how the processes were. Every detail in dialogue editing, using fill, PFX. I had never heard about it. Big PFX, FUTs, a lot of things that were basic and fundamental in audio post production. I didn't know, but
Mm.
in 2010, I I I worked in some 5 short films, animation short films, and they went through a festival. They they went to the festival, and in this festival, some guy named, his name is Andy Malcolm. He's
Mm. I know
a
him, yeah.
very famous Foley artist from Canada,
Yeah.
from Footsteps Studios. He came to Brazil to make a. He was in a traveling show making live Foley, and in a movie. And this traveling show, the name was Brand Upon the Brain. And he came to Rio de Janeiro and to do a master class on Foley. And I went, of course I went, and I participated a lot. I was like the kind of the person that nobody likes. It's all the time, but how you do, making questions and participating. Andy asked, so who wants to come here and do with me to do this door, to make this glass shattering. Who wants to come? Nobody raised their hands, and I was the only one who all the time, I want only a teenager, something like that, like 18 years old, something like that. And then I went to the stage a lot of times, and practiced a lot. And he actually said I did a good job and all that, and I believed. So when the event was over, I came to talk to the person who was the producer or something like that, who was kind of accompanying Andy in the city and all that. And I asked her, "Where is Andy going to stay here for more days?" And she told me that they were going to take him to a very famous local here in Rio de Janeiro, a very famous bar, that is kind of ethnic and something. It's very very interesting place. And I went there on the day that she told me that they were going to take him. I went there and I started looking for him, and I found him, and he remembered me. And to resume the story, I told him I wanted to learn Foley, that I loved the practice, but we don't have that in Brazil. Nobody taught that. And how could I learn? And he invited me to work with him, to go to Canada, to Oxbridge, and work with him, to learn from him and from his team. And at the time, I had another job. I had passed in a in a contest. I don't know how to say that. Working for the government in
Hmm.
a governmental agency, and doing sound design as a side job. Because I didn't earn enough to only do sound design. But I quit my job at the end of 2010, and 2011 I went to Canada to learn from Andy, and
Wow.
he did that for me for free, for someone he didn't know, for just a teenager, a boy that was only had a spark in the eye, it was only passionate, and he did that for me. So I am, until this day, I am very humbled by him, by what everyone there taught me. Goro Koyama, Jenna Della Riva, Jack Heron, Don White, everyone that I worked with in Footstep Studios. And while I was there, they he he told people to show me around, to teach me about audio post production. So they would invite me to go watch the premix, the Foley premix, the talks that they were having about the post production process and all that. So I started learning a lot because he provided me this
Hmm.
experience. And when
And
I
did you
came
get
back
paid
to
for your internship then, or how did you make
no,
your living there?
I spent all my money and some more.
I get that. But that's actually what it takes, right? When you get
Exactly.
such an opportunity, you jump on it. And
Exactly. Exactly.
I have a similar story to yours, like it's almost parallel, even the years kind of match up because um, I started as a rapper and then wanted to make a career from that. And then I also, in the parallel, always wanted to make money with engineering and producing. Interned at many studios, and my first mentor also said to me, look, actually you're not getting paid here, but you should actually pay me because I'm telling you all the stuff that you want to know, right? I was kind of like, yeah, maybe, but I think I'm bringing enough value for you now to not having to pay you. In the end, I
Pay
paid
you.
him because he then mixed and mastered my first album that I also produced in that studio with my band back then, and
Nice.
it was a great experience. But I had the same impression that I cannot survive as an engineer within the music industry. And then I wanted to look into something else. And I discovered film sound then also in around 2009. And then I really dived into it like full on, and even dropped my career as a rapper for that, and switched those priorities. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I wanted to study at film school because in Germany they actually teach audio in those film schools, but they wouldn't
Nice.
accept me. So I then ended up interning more within the post-production realm in Berlin, and landed an internship and then an apprenticeship in one of the great studios there. And then I had 2.5 years, similar to what you had with Andy Malcolm, with a company called Basis Berlin. Shoutouts. And yeah, the team there then they did let me work on real projects, as a sound effects editor or dialogue editor, and I could learn from them while I was doing it. The main job that I did for the first 1.5 years was mainly like Foley editing. Yeah, and then that was really the school that I needed, those 2.5 years working on
Yeah.
projects, getting the feedback from my mentors, that enabled me then to start working in the industry right away after that 2.5 years. So how
Nice.
long did you spend in Canada?
It was actually a couple months. I think it was 6 months, something like that. It was very short period because our currency, it it's not very when you convert it to dollar, it's you don't have a lot of use to it. It's a very it's a more poor currency.
Yeah.
So I spent every all the money I made that I saved for the experience. I spent everything, and my parents lent me some money to be there, but eventually the money ran out, and even Andy told me, "Look, Pedro, now we are going through a couple of months with fewer jobs during the summer. We don't work a lot, so maybe if you want, you can go back to Brazil and save some more money, and then come back here to stay for some 3 years, and then we will teach you everything."
Hmm.
And the last person who was there for this long was someone called Quiva Doyle, that is
Hmm.
an accomplished Foley artist that made Game of Thrones and a lot of great shows and films. So I was very excited to do that. But when I came to Brazil, I could never save enough money to go back. So I stayed here. But when I came, I thought, I always joke about it. I thought that people would receive me in the airport, with the red carpet and all that. Oh, Pedro came from Hollywood, Brazil. This guy knows a lot. I didn't know enough that I can tell you that 6 months was great, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I thought I knew a lot, but I
It's
didn't.
amazing, huh? How much you actually need to work and to really grind on this craft that you really
Yeah,
know things.
exactly.
Because thank you so much for staying on. If you haven't subscribed to the channel wherever you watch or listen, please do so because it really helps us to maintain and grow this podcast and this channel. Thank you for doing this. Let's get back to the episode. My mentor back then, Ansgar Frerich, shoutouts, he told me, yeah, I'm doubting if I should hire you for those 2.5 years because you live like an hour drive away, like with the train. And you really need those 2.5 years. You have to be here more than 8 hours per day in order to know enough after that you're ready for the industry. So do you think
Yeah,
you can manage that? Because if you're not, then there's no point for you being here. And I said, yeah, I can manage. And I actually did. But it was a hard 2.5 years to really grind and stay there after everyone finished and working on my own projects. And I even continued studying piano for the application on the film school because my plan was
mm,
I want to reapply after those 2.5 years. So I came there before everyone, practiced piano, and then worked for the 8 hours. And then I stayed longer to learn even more stuff and work on like student films and stuff like that. And
that's
that's
great.
actually what it takes, to
Yeah,
really be ready. And a lot of people nowadays maybe don't understand that. And they want to
yeah,
be working in games companies and just making a little effort. Yeah, I know a little bit about Wise, and I made this redesign for Halo 2 or whatever, and now they're ready for the industry. But actually,
Yeah.
what gets you hired is if you start your day one at whatever gaming company, let's say Ubisoft. I worked there for 5 years. You need to be able to do the job. You maybe have like 2 weeks of
Yes.
onboarding to get your system running, but then they want you to do the job, and they don't want to explain a lot of stuff and train you for another 1 or 2 years until you get there. And this is true for all the levels. This is true for a junior position. This is also true for an intermediate or senior position. Just the roles and the responsibilities are different. We're not talking about internships at a company or something like that. Yeah. There, it's
Yeah.
fine if you don't know anything, but if you want a junior position, have to know what is required. Your responsibilities. They will just task you,
Yeah.
with stuff. Do this,
And I
do
have to
that.
do it.
Yeah, and you don't have the responsibility to mentor your teammates or to make creative decisions about certain things within the game. You just tasked with do X, Y, Z, what we tell you, and we tell you how to do it, and you do it exactly in that way, in a way of like excellence that we can rely on you with the things that we ask from you. We don't ask more than what your position like allows us to ask, but the things we ask you have to do. And
Yes.
yeah, so how do people get there these days? I mean, that's exactly why I'm so passionate about the mentoring and to help people, get up to speed. Because even when you're doing the university and finish that, you may not be ready for the industry. So,
Yeah.
what is your understanding of that? Doing courses, teaching people, educating people now, like how do you convey that, and how do you get them there, that they're ready?
Yeah. I started teaching audio in 2012, and I saw a difference, and I saw a change in mindset. That is, when we started, for you to get the opportunity to work with audio, you had to learn a lot of more technical aspects and sometimes boring aspects of workflow, of troubleshooting, of a lot of things before you started actually creating and making things. You had to work in a studio, and people would show you the things that you had to know prior to creating. Nowadays, you have a lot of free software, and a very accessible software, sound effects, tutorials, and videos show teaching you, isolated techniques and processes and something like that. So people nowadays, they the barrier for entry is very low. When we
Mm,
started, it was very high. For you to start to make something, to have your first job, to have your first opportunity to sit in Pro Tools and edit and make everything, you had first to go through a lot of things, different things, boring things, and you had to learn a lot of different aspects of the work before you started editing, mixing, creating, right?
yes.
Nowadays, it's the opposite. People discover sound design today, and in the same day that the person discovered sound design, he can already create a portfolio. In the
Mm,
same day, people, there's this thing called sound design. Nice, let me put it on YouTube, and person puts there, and there's this software called Reaper. It's free to test, so let me download it. Let me see. This guy is making this sound effect here of this explosion. Let me try and make it. And they do, and they, wow, I know how to do it. In the same day, they think they know how to do it. And and a lot of people approach me online and say, I'm ready to do the job. I'm ready to go to the market and to the industry. I'm ready. I'm only lacking opportunity. And I'm ready to do these big shows, to make to work in streaming films and shows and all the more complex things. And I tell them, I work in this industry for 18 years now. Do you really think that you have enough knowledge and experience and practice to start now and work in the same shows that I work, to be my to compete as an equal? You don't have, and you have to have this. You have to know this, because
Mm.
this is actually good. Because uh, in 10 years past, you start your career now. 10 years from now, you won't like to have to compete with someone that just started, and just because the person maybe has money and can have all the equipment and software and everything from the get-go. The person just discovered sound design. The person is in their first year of practice in sound design, of solo practice, without learning from people who really know and who will say, your session is unorganized. Your signal flow is messed up. People who really know and who will teach and tell them that what they're doing is not correct, is not actually good. These people, they don't have reference, they don't really have the knowledge, and they think they know enough to come and to compete. And 10 years from now, they will be more established in the industry. They will have their experience, they will have their responsibilities, their job, their their techniques, their processes, their all of the things that they created, they learned, they achieved in this time. And they won't like people that just started and that think that they are ready to do the same job that these other guys do. So that's something I talk a lot, and I tell my students a lot, because uh, that's when I started. I didn't have the illusion that the job was this easy, you know because if you think that you just started now, 1 2 years, you just started, and you are ready to go to the world and get an Oscar in sound design, you
Mm.
think this job is easy. That's what you think. If you really think that you can be in the industry, in the biggest and more complex jobs and works, and be doing that with fewer years of experience, what you really think is that it is easy. It's easier than all of the other crafts. That's for sure, because you cannot be, a DOP with 2 years of experience. How can you be a sound designer, an accomplished sound designer, or a Foley artist, or a mixer, or a sound effects editor, or whatever, with only a few years of experience? You can't.
Mm.
That's
Yeah,
just
and there we go, with only a few years of experience, and
yeah,
that is the main point here. It takes you a while. It takes you really a
yeah,
while, and those few years have to be very intense. It's not
yes,
we're not talking about I'm doing this after work 2 times a week for 3 hours or whatever.
yeah,
You're doing it
yes,
every day for 8 hours for a couple of years, and you put some hours on top of that, and then you know stuff, and then you
yeah,
learned and you made mistakes and you delivered on projects, and you know how it
exactly.
is to work on a deadline and to, I don't know, stay the whole night before the mix and finish some editing that they can mix it the next day, and then you sit there like totally tired at the mixing
Yeah.
stage for another 8 hours until you can get home.
Yes, and you have to do some things that maybe you disagree. You don't think that the sound should sound like that.
Mm,
Other person is it's telling you how they want to hear it, and you have to do not what you think or whatever. You are not allowed to improvise. You have to be assertive. So that's the difference. When someone
yeah.
starts to make create their own portfolio and start and only do sound redesign. This is it's a very common thing. People do a lot of sound redesign. They record a piece of, you know, God of War or whatever, and they start creating on that image. Is it a good exercise? Of course it is, but it's really far from the truth, from what really happens in the industry when you have a job, because you have a schedule. You know, you have demands, specific demands of how you have to work, of how you have to organize your session, of, you know, of the, if you're making sound effects in movies, you have this, a lot of food groups that you have to organize, and A is for animals, B is for whatever, you know, you have to follow that kind of organization and planning, and you have to deliver in a specific time. So it's different because the person will record the video and start doing their sound redesign that maybe is 40 seconds, and they will take maybe a week to finish and say, okay, it's perfect. In the real world, you have less than a day to make 40 seconds. You have maybe you have 5 minutes, right? Maybe you have 10 minutes. So it's far from the truth. People
Mm.
will work in the same portfolio for weeks, months, maybe, you know, and then maybe it sounds great, but they won't have this opportunity in the market. So that's one thing I tell my students: when you
So
start to create your own portfolio, set a date, set, you know, when you have to finish it. In our job, it is like that. It is impossible to finish a mix. Every time you play, you will see something different that you want to adjust, to change. You don't have time to just listen and listen and listen indefinitely and make all the changes you want. You have to deliver. So that's a good change in this exercise of the sound redesign. You know, just to put a time limit.
mm. And how do you go about your mentoring and teaching? How is it structured? So how can people approach you, and what is the format? How long? And yeah, how can I imagine that?
Okay, uh, I I structured a course that is self-managed by the person, you know, because I used to teach on colleges and other types of courses here in Brazil, and a lot of them, the person gets disqualified if they are absent from the classes, you know, and which is, I think, when it's when the class is, you know, face to face, you know, on the when the person has to be in the same place, you know,
Yeah.
it's, I think it's right, you know, to disqualify someone because they were absent the whole course. But when I was teaching like this, I met a lot of very talented people that maybe they, because they were very very talented and very, you know, forward and dedicated, they started working in the industry. They got a job, and of course the priority for them is to work, not to finish the course, you know. People do the course to work, not the other way, right? So they started to be absent because they were working, and then they were disqualified. And sometimes they would even come back to the course because they kind of stagnated, you know, in the industry after that job, or maybe the job went, it didn't go that well because they really didn't know how to deliver or other things, you know.
Hmm.
So they came back, and others didn't. They went to do other things, you know. So we me and my wife, it's us, we created this. We thought in a way that we could make this course that was self-managed. So how does it work? We have a lot of different modules and disciplines that we teach, that I teach, and I recommend the students to don't to watch in the order that I established, because the order that I established, I created a course that follows the standard workflow of post production of the audio production in films. So we start early when in the first disciplines. We learn the fundamentals, of course, the physics and the equipments and the language of sound design, of films, of editing, also, right? So image editing too. And we learn all these fundamentals, and we learn all the workflow of the of a film production, from the pre-production until the delivering process. We learn that, and then we start the more practic the practice. The part that's more practice, more hands-on of the course, and we go to uh, to sound supervising, to supervising sound editor that begins previous to everyone, starting to think about the concept of the sound design and all that. That plans the agenda, plans the schedule of the film and everything. Then we go to production sound, and we learn everything about the production sound that we can learn online. Of course, production sound requires you, if you want to really learn production sound, it requires you to have the hands-on experience of being on a set and recording with boom, lavalier, and everything else, right? And we can't teach that online, and it's not my expertise. So I don't pretend that I know everything to teach everything about that. I teach the workflow and the things. I also did some jobs. I worked with production audio for some time too, but a long time ago. I teach the demands, how to talk to people that work in production audio. The things that we will need in post production and everything. And then we start to plan the post production, which is another part of supervising sound editing. Of the supervisor, the sound supervisor. And we this next this discipline is to plan, put everything on paper, and divide the tasks, and to think about the broad picture of the sound design. But previously, before starting to really edit. And then we start dialogue editing is the first discipline. And then we have some materials to practice, a short film and commercial piece. And then very hands on. And then we have we get to sound effects editing, and we start in the ambience editing, backgrounds and effects, sound effects for the backgrounds and everything. And then we go to sound effects, more hard effects, and things more, diegetic, and also more sound design, creative. And then we go to Foley production, and there is a video of me on the studio. I had 14 years. I had a career in 14 years making Foley, right? I had my studio up until February of the last year, 2024, where my daughter she made 1 years old. And when and then I decided to close my studio and started and work more from home, to be closer to her. But I did Foley for a lot of films, and for 14 years as a
Wow.
Foley artist. And then there is this discipline where I teach both the recording process of Foley and the editing process, and then I provide every discipline that is more hands-on. I provide the exercise, the same material that I am working on in the class. They have to work on to make it, to maybe copy what I'm doing, or maybe try different things, and create and everything that. So every more hands-on module of the course, they have the same material that I am working with. So they
So
get the
that is then changing. Like you teaching. Like how long is this course? Like how long do they sign up for studying with you?
it's a 1 year, and but they can at the end of the year pay a little. We give a huge discount, 75% discount, and they can pay 25% of the course to stay inside and keep learning and keep besides all of the recorded classes that they can watch in this order. We have live classes. Every month we have at least one live class, and beside with me. And besides that, I invite people from the market here in Brazil. Very famous people that they did worked in famous films and shows and all that, to teach different things. So we had classes of a research about sound design for horror films that is more than 10 years old, and it's a very rich research. We had the class with the responsible for this research. We had classes on recording for spatial audio, production sound for spatial audio and all that for VR. We had a special class of dialogue editing. We had two, actually, of dialogue editing. The last one was last month with someone that worked in a lot of great films that we had, even Hollywood films. And so there's that. We
Okay.
have this recorded course and the live classes. And besides that, we have a community that I moderate the community. We have a lot of groups in this community. We Today we have two 253 members in the community, including me and my wife. So there's a lot of people in the community, and people help each other a lot. So actually, just before we started, I was helping a student to get a job from the United States for post production in a feature film. And he came with doubts about budget, and how to calculate budget and how to charge and all that. And everyone in the community pitch in. Everyone gives tips and questions to help the person, do the thing that they have to do. And in this today, it was this. He came with doubts about the budget, and I'm helping him to make a budget to land this job, and maybe even to hire people from the community. So
Yeah.
the community that we created is it's a great thing, man.
And
It's
every
it's
one of
great,
those
great.
240 people, are they currently enrolled in your course?
Yes, you can only be in the community if you are enrolled active in the course.
Yeah.
Because because if you are in the community, you will have access to the live classes, which I send the invite in the community. So they have to pay to be in the community to be able to be in these live classes, right? Including the classes with other people in the industry,
And
because
what is the ratio of people who are there for the first time versus people who are already kind of alumni and paying only the 25%?
Wow. Uh, we have uh, until this year 70% of everyone that enrolled in the course paid to be there, to renovate, to to paid the second year, the third year. So most of these 250 people are there for more than a year. Most of
Okay,
them,
and
I
then
think,
there's
more than 70.
okay, and there's an enrollment period every year, or like how when do you start the next year of your teaching?
Because our course was created to be self-managed by the person, the alumni, we we it doesn't matter when the person enrolls, because it is self-managed, so they don't have to be part of this closed class. There is a class, because that helps me to accompany, to follow their development and all that, to know the person has this question because they didn't watch the this class. I can understand kind of where they are coming from and where they are in their development. So it is good for us to manage, but it really doesn't matter. There are people that enrolled in 2021 that still didn't watch all of the classes. You know,
Mm.
if they don't have time to do that, and they every year they pay to still be there and to learn from the community and to learn from the live classes, and when they have time they watch the next class and all that. It's with them. Some of
And
them, even
mm,
there is people that didn't finish the course, but while they were watching, they were more active. They landed a job and they are still working in the same studio, and they are they're working a lot, and that's why they still didn't finish the last class.
okay,
They didn't watch everything, so it's okay. It's self-managed. We
and
are here to facilitate.
yeah. So, and what is then your dream student? Like very beginner, not knowing anything, or like already a little bit established? And then what is the promise you make for them to join for the year? Like what is the promised outcome for them?
Yeah. My dream student, the best student, is someone that already has some experience, that already knows something, how to work on DAWs, digital audio workstations, and understand something about audio production.
Mm.
Because I don't teach the the basics, the most basic things, like this is how you edit, this is how you import an audio to the DAW, and this is how you edit. you know I don't teach that. This is how you sync the sound to the image. That's too basic. If I When we created, we wanted to help people to thrive in the industry, to land the jobs and to work in the industry. And uh, we understood that this, if we took time to teach the most basic, you know uh, uh, the most simple things, we the course would be too long, you know
Mm.
and because it's an online course and it's already long, it takes a year,
And
because
what is
it's
the outcome?
already. So the promise that we it's a hard thing for us, because here in Brazil, as I said, you are not very much appreciated for your job in audio post production. So we can't promise appreciation. We can't promise to be for the person to be valued. We can't promise for them to have a lot of money, because here in Brazil, if you work on audio, you work because you love it, not because of money. Because if you want money, you will do picture editing or other things that will pay you a lot more. And
Hmm.
so the promise is very difficult. The only promise we make is that the person will work. Is that is the promise. If you want to work in, actually, it's two promises. If you want to be a specialist in audio for films and series, and shows, and if you want to work making sound design and post production audio to films and shows. That's our promises. So there are two promises: to be a specialist, to specialize, and to work. And that's what makes people want to learn. Because a lot of people, they think they already know. They are passionate about the job, but they simply can't work. They simply can't land a job, so they work in something else, and sometimes they have the opportunity to work on a short film or something like that.
And do you then also have a business model that you teach, like how to set yourself up in a freelancing environment or how to apply properly for a job at a studio or something like that?
No, I because our course, we always have at least one live class. There is always someone that asks something like this. And almost every live class, I I teach something like this. But we don't have a separate course for that or a mentorship for that, because we feel that it is too unpredictable to teach. So I don't feel I ethically and morally, I don't feel like I can promise this. Like, I will teach the best ways to land a job, and if you get into this mentorship, I promise you will leave with a job. I can't promise that. I can't. So we don't have a course on that or a mentorship on that. But we are planning to create a mentorship uh, that will, of course, we I will talk about that with everyone, right? But it will be more than that. I will talk about workflow, about session setup, about everything. And in this mentorship also, I will talk about the market, about how to thrive as a freelancer or everything else. But I don't feel secure. I don't feel that it would be very honest of me to sell a course on how to get a job, how to land jobs, how to sell your service or whatever, if the market is so unpredictable.
Mm.
Now, especially because Brazil is a huge country. It's huge, huge, and our industry, it's not very spread. It's not evenly spread throughout our country, so it's not equal opportunities. You know,
Mm.
and but there are people in every state, in almost every city, that would like to work in this industry, and I can't make the same promise whether the person is in the Amazon, right? Or if the person is in Rio de Janeiro. In Rio de Janeiro, there are a lot more opportunities, of course.
Mm. Yeah.
But if the person lives in the Amazon, there still are opportunities. There still are local TV networks. There are still local advertisement companies and all that. So people still can work even living far from the center of audiovisual production in Brazil. That is Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo for the most part.
Mm.
But it's still unpredictable to promise that.
So Pietro, I really appreciate you telling me all this. It resonates so much with me because I'm equally passionate about these things and I'm starting to build a similar thing that you already have established. So I'm looking up to you like extremely. It's to me it's a revelation to hear all these things from you because I have planned them out in my head already for a couple of years. I established a little bit of a structure, you know. I also have a little bit of a community going on right now with only
Nice.
13 members. And I'm thinking about a way how to get things structured and to make it more like efficient for everyone to join and to also make it very clear, you know, how to communicate what this thing is that I'm offering as a service. And it's such a huge endeavor, you know, and getting to know you and knowing that you do this already for so many years, it's really a huge inspiration for me. And I would love to continue the conversation, maybe even with another podcast episode, you know, to get more deeper into the nitty gritty of how you set it up and how things were maybe evolving in the first years and what changed over the time. If you're willing to have another episode, I'm looking
For
forward
sure.
to that.
For sure. For
So
sure. Yeah. But just one thing that you were talking, I thought maybe it will help. The community is the way to go. Focus on creating this vibrant community
mm,
because we work a lot. Our industry is crazy. Sometimes you will be stuck in a job and you won't have time to help people, to give tips and to follow people and everyone. But when you create this community where everyone helps everyone, someone made a portfolio and they want tips on the portfolio, they post it on the community and people will help to improve. Someone, everything. And when you get to a point, when we got there in 2023, to a point where people really really engaged in the community, it was really a life changer for
mm,
everyone in there, because there are people that use the same software and you use another one. There are people with different conditions, different situations, different difficulties, different interfaces, different stories, different everything, and people kind of find each other, and it's very it's great. It's very you feel very proud and honored to be there providing
mm,
this space, this safe space for people to network, to help each other, to grow together. And it's great because there are a lot of students. For example, this student that is asking for help to for the budget of this film, he's telling that probably he will hire the team from within the community. So
mm,
in this community, people bring opportunities, job opportunities, free plugins, free sound effects, and everything. So everyone grows stronger, together, and people start to meet each other in the industry, on festivals and all that, and they send pictures on the community, and it's awesome because it starts to be more than just a course.
mm.
It starts to be more than just a course. It starts to be where you belong. Really, it's a community where you belong. It's 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 great. It's great. I really recommend you go that way and think about the rules of the community and how you will manage, because it is a lot of work to make people be engaged. You have to work a lot until a point where they really get to be, and then it's easier for you. But still, you have to read everything every day. Sometimes there are more than 200 messages in the same day. You have to read everything to make sure people aren't fighting or breaking the rules of the community. And but it's great. It's great.
Mm.
It's
Thank you
it
so much
really
for that
helps everyone.
for that advice and also for the the vision of like what it actually takes. So yeah, I appreciate it so much that we having this conversation. Thanks for taking the time. Where can people find you, and can people also approach you from from outside of Brazil?
Of course. People can find me in Instagram, also in YouTube. I usually teach in Portuguese, so if if people speak Portuguese or want, or understand Portuguese or Spanish, Spanish is closer to Portuguese, right? They can follow me in at Audio Didata, that is DIDATA, right?
Hmm.
So data, right? So Audio DIDATA. Kind of
We're gonna make a little
it's a
text as
joke here in
well.
Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And people can find me there, and people, yeah, please feel free to contact me, whether in Instagram or whatever, YouTube. You can comment, and you can send me a DM, and we can talk. Actually, just yesterday, that there is a very famous dialogue editor here in Brazil that is already it's also a tutor in a very big um, college here,
Hmm.
and she told me yesterday that they have three scholarships that they will pay people from around the world, people that are not Brazilian and also not American or Canadian, but everyone else can apply for this scholarship that they will be paid to do a master's in audio for films and TV and whatever. They just have to move to Curitiba. That is the
Mm.
city where the college is. So if anyone watching here wants to have an experience visiting and making a master's in Brazil and getting paid for it, that's the opportunity.
Nice
You
one.
can contact me, and I will I will send you the way you have to follow.
Appreciate it. And people can also contact you for freelance work on projects, right?
Yes, I today I work mostly as a supervising sound editor, but my biggest school is in sound effects. I worked for 14 years making Foley as a Foley artist. We won actually some prizes, in even in MPSC for our film Bacurau. It's a
Hmm.
great film, Brazilian film. I recommend watching. We won awards in making that film. I worked on more than 200 films and shows, and my specialty is the sound effects aspect, but also and more supervising sound editor. That I'm now making some films. There's actually a big movie that will launch in October this year, next month. That is for Disney Plus here in Brazil. It's about a big characters. It's an important film, and I worked as a supervising sound editor. So if you want anything, you can call me. I also make I work as a consultant too. So people sometimes have a film and they want and they want some tips, and whether it is on delivery, creating a template that you can do the delivery in only one click, which is a great thing. When you have to deliver to Disney, for example, the delivery process is huge with a lot of different uh, deliverables, right?
Yeah.
If you set up your session in a way, your mixing session in a specific way, you can bounce everything with one click, or you can print everything with one click. You just have to have a strategic session template, right?
Mm.
And I created a course about that, and I also do that on as a consultant. I help people create those sessions to to make the process of delivery easier and more guaranteed, without failure, without things playing where they shouldn't be playing and everything. And also, creatively, right? I watch and I give tips, and I think, I say things maybe, maybe this reverb tail is too long. It's, it's it's not, it's English problems. it's
No worries.
it's not good here. Maybe it's too long. It's not sounding great here, or maybe this is too resonant or whatever. I talk about every aspect of the sound design of films and shows. There's that.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. It's a great service that you provide, not only to the people learning, but also to the professionals. I really appreciate it. I love it. I love everything about it. And it's a great inspiration for me personally. So thanks again for taking the time.
Thanks, Bastian. It was a pleasure. Whenever, if you want, just talk again, say hi, and we'll schedule it.
All right, let's
Very
do it.
great.
You have reached the end of the conversation. Thank you very much for doing that. I really appreciate it. To me personally, it was really inspiring to hear how he went from working with his dad to getting into sound, and then knowing early on that sound post-production will make the cut for him and that he will be able to sustain himself, then going into teaching and learning from Andy Malcolm and all those things. It's really very inspiring, and I have so many similarities in my own career that resonate with what he told us. Hopefully that resonates with you as well, and know more and better what you actually have to do in order to get to the next level within your career. And if you want to work either with Pedro, now how to reach him. If you want to work with me, just send me a DM on Instagram, typing the word industry, and then you can set up a 20-minute roadmap call with me. We can talk strategy for your personal development, and then you can join the Foley Guild and learn a whole year with me and build something together. If that's for you, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Other than that, enjoy one of the next videos. Peace, the Foley Teacher.